Welcome to the Maven Marketing Podcast. Today is Maven Monday. I'm your host, Brandon Welch, and I'm here with my long-lost friend, Caleb Ichabod.
We did it. We're
did
back
it.
together.
Since, we've been gone from each other on these mics.
I know.
We weren't in counseling or anything like that.
No. Maybe it seemed like we were feuding. Like, I can't be in the same room as him.
Yeah, we had creative differences.
Creative differences,
Yeah.
breaking the band up. But we're back together. Our debut album.
Yeah.
And
album number 2. Hey, we are nearing dang near 3 years of the show. We need to make sure we're celebrating that.
We really should.
You can send congratulations cards and cakes and balloons to 909 East Republic Road. There you go. Hey, this is the place where we answer your real-life marketing questions so you can grow your business and achieve the big dream. And something else about eliminating waste in advertising in there, right? 3 years and we'll get it one of these days.
Yes.
Eliminate waste in advertising. Grow your business. Achieve the big dream. We are unreasonably excited for all of you who are running businesses or who are working for somebody directly who is running a business, who's calling this show. In America, a small or medium business is any company doing under $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
We work with businesses from that $1 to $5 million space all the way up to that 100 million plus space.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to do is help them become famous in their market, help people think of them first, make it really easy for them to find when it's time to do business, and make it really easy for them to take that first step. That is the Frank and Maven way. We've been so blessed to do that for a lot of really, really cool companies and entrepreneurs over the last almost 13 years now. And we're teaching you our best stuff. Several years ago, it became evident to us that the impact we wanted to make could not be done in front of businesses on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
We love doing that. We have a handful of clients we work with on a daily and weekly basis to grow their companies, but we want tens of thousands. We know that small business owners are the ones that change America. We believe that because you spend the majority of people spend the majority of their time working for a small business owner. They spend more time there than church, a lot of times more time than they do at home and with family. And it's like, if we can help that business thrive, we help a lot of things thrive. And so that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have gone to great expense and time and consideration to bring you the questions that we hear real business owners asking. And that's why we say we're here every week with real life marketing questions.
Yeah.
Not just the ones we think you should ask.
Today's marketing question is, how often should I change my ads, my creative? Sometimes it's called traffic.
Yeah.
And
how often do I switch it up?
How often do you need to switch it up? Because on any media, we think about TV and radio, or maybe the more broadcast ones, but even on digital, you think about all these things. You're building these ads. Hopefully you build more than one ad. But the question is, when should it change? Is it good to change it really often? Or is it good to keep it the same for a really long time? Is it something in between? That's what we're going to sort out today.
Some of you are just kind of going with whatever the station rep told you.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of cases, it can be a really good station or really good media or really good rep. But that's not always a connected process. Sometimes it's actually really cumbersome to change out an ad.
Yeah.
It's a lot of back and forth, and there's an overworked video team or radio production team at the station, and so you've kind of just got it on autopilot, and you might wait, several months, or even I've seen some run a couple of years
For years and
somebody
years.
says, "Oh, we should run a different
We
ad."
should probably change it.
And so let's go to research first. Let's not go to our opinion, because you're going to be tired of the ad probably before you might actually should change it.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of studies done over the years on ad fatigue. One of the more recent ones was Schmidt and Eisend. Schmidt and Eisend.
You got it.
I saw Einstein.
Yeah,
I've
you
seen
wanted
this.
it.
Yeah, we've quoted this before on the podcast, but so peak recall, and this has been kind of consistent through the years, meaning the most amount of actual recall you're going to get to your brand.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about the tomorrow customer, which is mostly what we're talking about today. If you want to become well known, at 8 times exposure, so the same person has heard the same ad 8 different times, that's when it starts to sort of peak, and 9 times, 10 times, 12 times, 18 times isn't really going to add a whole lot of ability to remember somebody.
Yeah.
So that's been pretty consistent throughout the years, but they actually talked about, okay, well, what about when does it become detrimental? So there's like a peak optimum, and then there's a threshold you don't want to become.
Diminishing returns
Yeah,
on the far side of it.
yeah, but then also it can start to become a negative because it's like I've heard the stupid ad too many
I'm
times,
annoyed.
and now I
Yeah,
have an annoyance factor. And they say that happens around 10 exposures.
is the peak. That's the
Yes,
top of the bell curve there.
yes, and so that's what Schmidt and Eisen found. RAB in 2022, after studying about 1,100 campaigns, said that optimal effective range, like for the ad to be effective, it's 4 to 17 exposures. Now that's a huge range.
Yeah.
You have to hear the same ad 17
That
times.
sounds a lot like 8 to 10.
Yeah. Yeah. But then they come back and say optimal is 7-ish.
Yeah.
So we have said 6 to 8 for a long time. And these other studies continue to echo that. So what does that mean? When should you actually change your spot? We know that the only two ways to make advertising work better is to increase the relevancy,
Mm-hmm.
write a better ad,
Yeah.
make it more memorable in its content, or increase the repetition. Now we know there's such thing as too little repetition and too much repetition, but that happens really depending on the thickness of your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So on TV, that happens at a different pace than it does radio, than it does billboards, than it does some of the digital platforms like YouTube and Meta and those sorts of ads. But so we want to discern really quickly frequency versus spot count.
Yeah, and that's a big piece of it. Is the answer cannot be the same for everyone listening right now. What we have to allow you to do is have the principle and the math that will let you figure out the answer to
Go to
when
your
should
market and your station.
yeah,
and
when
your
should I
situation.
change my ad creative. So
So I'm going to break this down as quickly as I can. So let's just take local broadcast, for example. If you read the Maven Marketer and you follow our media principles, you will know we don't buy any broadcast media unless we can buy it at a certain frequency as a baseline.
mhm.
And for us, that means a bare minimum of 3 spots per week in the same program on TV. It has to be a program that repeats every day. And so
Mhm.
3 spots per week. If you can't afford to buy it 3 spots a week, 52 weeks a year, buy a smaller program or don't do it at all.
Yep.
So assuming that you're on that logic, a quote unquote starter schedule might be that you're 3 spots a week, and let's say a morning news program, and then you might add another 3 spots a week in a noon news program or like an afternoon
Yep.
type program.
Yeah.
The big expensive audiences in the evening, sometimes you don't have enough money on the front end of your schedule. If you're let's just say you're doing less than $2 or $3 million a year in revenue. A lot of
Yeah.
cities you wouldn't have the budget to support that. But let's just say you're at that 3 frequency. Well, just because your ad played 3 times this week, does that mean that it's at a 3 frequency?
No,
Why?
because you are trying to make sure that I personally saw it at a 3 frequency.
There is some, Joe or Jane that probably did see it all 3 times this week.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very small part of the population that does that. But the average person is not going to be sitting there all 30 minutes of the news program, and maybe they're not even watching that program in the day. But over time, it compounds. So
Yeah.
you may have caught them on Tuesday this week, and maybe it's Wednesday next week, and then a couple of Wednesdays later, you caught them again. Stations have some, if you're buying your media direct and not using an agency, stations will very often have a software called Wide Orbit if it's TV, or a software called TapScan if it's radio. They'll have some way of giving you a frequency distribution. That's what you need to ask for and say what's the average person and the average audience. So if there's 50,000 people a week that watch that program, or 100,000 or whatever, they'll do the math. There's an algorithm. They'll spit out a predicted frequency, and that's what you want to go off of.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're running 3 spots a week in a program, you're probably getting about 2.5 to 3 times per month that the average person actually saw it.
Wow. Yeah.
Even if the spot ran 3 times 4 weeks, it ran 12 times. Well, that actually averaged out to probably a little bit less than a 3 frequency.
So we have a lot of people who have watched it just one time over the
Right.
course of that month. They have to take into account the people that watched it.
Yep.
Only
Some have
once.
seen it all 12. Some have seen it only once. The average is in the middle. And the software in your rep could print that out for you. But you want to pay attention when that big number of the frequency of that one spot gets to be, in that 6, 7, 8 range. That's when you need to be changing spots.
Mhm. So you take that monthly number, let's say, from my wide orbit report or even
Hmm.
tap scan if it's radio,
Yeah.
and then I would acknowledge, let's say it's 2, just for
Yeah.
round number's sake. When would I need to change it then?
So probably between months 3 and 4, you'd probably hit. So you said
A 2.
it was at a 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 this month, you can kind of add that together with 2 next month, 2 the third month, and between that 3 and 4 month, you could start switching.
Because we're aiming for that 8, that 7,
Yes.
8, 10 range, right?
Yes. Now, couple of things. This is all assuming you've been running one spot, and
Mhm.
sometimes that's the appropriate thing to
One
do.
commercial, one
One
ad.
commercial, one ad. And I'm speaking to the lower end because it's way more important when you're at the lower end of frequency to
Yeah.
pay attention to
If
this
your
sort of
buy
stuff.
is a lot lighter,
Yeah.
it's a pretty simple schedule.
Yeah, if it's a simple schedule, yeah, you need to make sure that ad's played long enough to get the maximum return.
Mhm.
And then, but also on the lower end tends to be people that spend a little bit less on production. So you need to know, having only 2 spots a year would be a really bad plan.
Mhm.
You probably need 4 or 5 spots in a year. And then if you're going to have any promotions or things you run in a spring or summer special or something like that, that would be, an additional ad on top of that.
Yeah.
But you're saying, if you're running one ad at a time, hey, if that's reached a 6, take it off the shelf. Let's put something in its place.
What would you say? Here's the unspoken question here. What would you say if I was running 2 ads at the same time?
Yeah. Depends on the weight you're running each ad, but if it's
So
assuming
let's
it was
say
50-50,
50/50. Yep.
you could get away with running those longer,
Okay.
because the average person wouldn't have heard the other ad. Now, how similar are the ads?
Yeah.
If you're using the same, exact script flow and you're just changing a few things out of the offer, it's basically the same thing. If you're using the
Mhm.
same exact tag, now you want some consistency. We've talked a lot about how to build a good brand
Yes.
personality.
That
But
way it all is cohesive. It goes together. The campaign works with
yes,
itself.
I want the same music. I want the same
Voice,
voice,
spokesperson.
spokesperson, speed, and all of that, but maybe the content and the angle changes. So I would say if
Mhm.
it's the same angle multiple times, even though you might have been running 2 slightly different versions, you need to switch that out
Yeah.
quicker.
Okay.
Yep.
So if I'm in that, let's just for the sake of the argument here, I've got 2 a month. I'm waiting for that to land at about the 8 range.
Yeah.
And then I would want to think about switching out my creative. Actually, before that,
Yeah.
I'd want to think about switching out my creative and swapping the
Yeah.
ads.
And maybe a quicker way to measure that is if that ad has run between 40 and 50 times to the same audience, the same program,
Mhm.
whether that's over a period of a month because you've got a higher frequency schedule, maybe you're running 5,
Yeah.
5 times a week in the same program, or maybe even multiple, or maybe you've got multiple programs running it. The more you're running the spot, the more the average frequency will go up. This
Yeah.
is why it's really good to use the computer to say, what's the average
What's the average
frequency been?
frequency?
But it's going to be in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 exposures at that one spot. And so we have some clients, we change traffic literally every month.
Yeah.
Um, or we leapfrog. We put one on for 6 weeks, and then we add in the middle of that, we'll split it to half traffic, and we'll kind of fade one in, fade one out, and hop them over the start dates.
That's great.
So that's TV. That's good old fashioned broadcast. Radio, it gets a little bit, I think, easier, because you're just saying every time an ad runs 100 to 120 times, you're switching it.
So
On a radio station.
So coach me on this. I call my radio rep. I've done my buy myself, or maybe I have an agency, but I want to get a tap scan report.
Mhm.
They're going to give me an average frequency against my listeners. Hopefully,
You can get it by month. You can get it by
smaller
6
stations
weeks.
may
Yeah.
not have these numbers or the data. Is that true? In some cases,
Really small ones, maybe
Okay.
not. Maybe not. There's a handful that wouldn't have a schedule building program.
Okay,
Any one that's gonna cost you a significant amount of money should.
yeah. Okay, and then once I get that, I'm going to be looking for this average frequency,
Mhm.
and I take that number and do what with it?
You're gonna say, hey, if it's above 8, you need to be going, like, hopefully you have ads in the hopper. Like, the best plan is to think ahead about your brand personality and the things you're going to be doing this year in your business. And you plan this in November, December for the whole following year. And you might shoot an entire quarter or even entire half year's worth of ads in one session so that
Mhm.
you have the same energy, you have the same brand personality, and you've thought sequentially about this ad's going to run, and then they're going to be thinking this, and then I'm going to build and stack onto my story this way. That's how smart advertisers do it. That's how smart even small advertisers do it. And we do that at the highest levels. We have
Yeah.
people that are spending, $1 million+ a year, and we're doing their campaigns up front. We might do 14 ads in a couple of days,
Yep.
and then it's kind of set, and we put that in motion way ahead of time before we go, oh gosh, it's going to hit a 8 frequency or whatever. We don't scramble, and that would be the best thing to do,
Yeah.
is to have it in the hopper. But you're gonna know if that ad has played 100 to 120 times on most radio stations, providing that you're using a schedule that's like 6 a.m. to 7 p. Monday to Friday. That's where most of your spots are running. By the time it's hit 100 to 120-ish spots, it's probably dead. And you either need to be adding another one to the mix or removing it altogether and trading it out.
And just for clarity, inside of a schedule we would buy, that would be about 4 or 5 weeks. Is
Yes.
that right? So
Yeah.
you're thinking on radio, you need to plan on a new ad every single month. On TV, if you're buying kind of on the low end of this scheduling frequency and you're wanting to change it every 2, 3, 4 months, depending on how high your frequency is.
Yes.
So a little bit more room on the TV buy for your creative switch out, but definitely on radio, you got to be on it.
Yep. So, and the thing that's at stake here is just that you've kind of already earned what that ad could be doing for you.
Mhm.
And running the same ad for even 6 or 12 months at a time would be better than not being on at all, because
Sure.
you do have to maintain frequency. You have
Yeah.
to maintain, like, just like friendship or any other relationship, you gotta put in the at bats.
Mhm.
But if you want it to be new and different and additive to what you've already built, and you want it to snowball and get better over time, that's where you need new, surprising, and different. Okay, so that's TV and radio. Um, let's go to some digital medias. These are going to inherently be media that are more today and transactional focused.
Yeah.
So, by the way, quick thing about transactional ads. If you're running your spring special, or you're running your, buy it now for whatever reason,
Mhm.
whatever the deadline of that offer is, and there should be a very clearly stated deadline, basically work backwards from that deadline and until you run out of money.
Yeah.
And you want to increase frequency towards the end of the deadline. Like in 10, 15, 20 exposures, if that's what your budget allowed, like if you moved everything you were doing for a 2-week period to push this one special offer,
Mhm.
um, then that's okay. It's okay to have really high frequency for an offer. But when the offer is done, you go back to your, what most people would call their brand building, your brand persona.
Their standard one.
Yeah.
That also works for event-based promotion as well.
Yes.
If you have an event, a big community event, or you're selling tickets for something, start from the date that they would need to be there, or that the tickets are done being sold, and work backwards. You can
Yes.
build your schedule that way.
Yep, until you run out of money. So,
Mhm.
okay, so let's go to like YouTube and Meta. So assuming that you're using these for a little bit more um, frequent, like you just don't get the time spent watching YouTube and Facebook ads.
Yeah.
So, there's a little bit of nuance here, because Facebook will actually start punishing the ad before human psychology does.
Yeah.
Facebook wants to see really, really frequent and fresh things.
They do.
And what's nice about it is you can actually watch the performance deteriorate in real time, so you know what to change.
Mhm.
So,
But the other nice thing about these two medias is that the frequency they show you
is
is
real.
actual real average frequency. As
Yes.
we would have called average frequency for the others, because it's all just kind of a math algorithmic guesstimate.
Yeah.
This is true. Brandon saw this 3 times, or the average viewer saw this
3.4
2.1 times, whatever that is. It'll tell you exactly,
Yes.
which is helpful.
Which in Facebook, you just go to Ads Manager and you click on the little columns and you go to Customize Columns, and you can go and click frequency, and it'll have several different types of frequency, like unique frequency, unique reach, and then it'll have, several different options. But
Yeah.
you just want to look at good old fashioned average frequency.
And then you need to pay attention to your date range because you'll be looking at the frequency inside of that window. So if you're looking at the frequency inside of 7 days, it's probably a
Yes.
lot lower of a number than it would be inside of 90 days.
Yes.
Right. So
The short answer to Facebook, though,
yeah.
if you're a small business and you're using this for like lead gen or using this for like a little bit of brand ad, like you're doing a nice, funny or entertaining reel or educational reel paired with some ad spend, you're probably changing that out every 4 to 6 weeks minimum. Like if you've got let's just say you're spending $5,000 in that creative, that tends to average out to that, 6 to 8 frequency that we would say is psychologically capping. Now,
Yeah.
you might watch over time if your click-through rates go down,
Mm-hmm.
if your CPM goes up. Those are all columns you can add in the Facebook Ad Manager. That's how you know Facebook is probably punishing you for having it up longer and they're charging you more. So you might, Facebook stated average, last I knew was in the 3 frequency range. They want to start seeing it go away at that point.
Yeah.
So-
They want to reward you for having fresh content.
Yes.
Now, there have been times historically I've seen with a few clients. This is Brandon stated this is more for traffic or not traffic, but maybe more a transactional type of ad, more today customer focused.
Mhm.
There have been times where we've done maybe more of a branding tomorrow customer focus on Facebook, and there have been what we would call evergreen ads that have stood the test of time. Now, what I would caution you to do is pay attention to the frequency of those. Because if it's the same people seeing the same thing, that's difficult. So you'd have to change your targeting and move around.
Yeah.
Who's seeing this ad? But for
We
the
do have
most
some
part,
ads that have been running for a long time, or we'll turn them off for 2 months and then turn them back on and they work.
Yes, they work.
And we're measuring, those are ones we're measuring primarily on cost per lead,
Yes.
lead production. So
Yeah.
those,
That we do test against those. That's the beautiful thing about these digital platforms is we can say, well, let's put another ad beside it and see how if it's still performing. Let's see how that goes.
and Facebook is very, very down on just having one ad in a campaign.
Yeah.
They want you to have at least a couple of different versions of the body copy
Mhm.
and a couple different versions of a picture or video and a couple different headlines. And go ahead and do that to the level you don't get too fancy. Like most of our campaigns have, probably 3 to 5 images and headline combinations running.
I feel like we flew over YouTube real quick. I want to make sure we go back. YouTube in your Google Ads dashboard, which is where you manage YouTube, you'll want to add the frequency column, pay attention to your date range, and you will be able to see the average frequency that a viewer has seen this.
Mhm.
Now, frequency actually, I would say, affects how you should set your targeting and your budget just as much as it is your ad change. So you can pay attention to the lifetime of that ad. You could literally go to when did it start? Where are we today? And you can see, is it at 7, 8, 9, 10? Okay, time to change it. If it's not, then it probably has a little bit more life left in it.
The reason that's such a hard, fast answer is the time window is if you are showing the same ad with a $5,000 budget to a 100,000 person audience, let's just say in a local or regional category, the frequency is going to stack up a lot faster than if that ad were randomly going around to a potential audience of 1 million, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit about your reach and your targeting that you have.
Yeah.
If the targeting is nationwide, you'll very rarely hit, a 3 frequency in a very short amount of time. But, for most people I think that we're talking to on this podcast, these are lead generation for service type companies.
Yeah. It's local, regional type of advertising. And that's what you need to pay attention to is, let's say you have a $5,000 budget. If you're targeting your small town, maybe a suburb town, that's a much smaller sample size. But if you're using that same $5,000 to target the whole state
or DMA
or the DMA or a much wider region, it's just going to take much longer to build up your frequency.
Mhm.
And in that small town, you may actually want to open it up in order to slow down your frequency spend.
So those are the principles, the key markers. When you go, I probably need to change something up. When you see cost per lead going up, when you see cost per 1,000 impressions going up, CPM, you'll see that in your dashboard. When you see click-through rate going down over time.
You can also watch even average view time.
Yep.
If that was higher in the beginning and it goes down, odds are the people are tired of watching it.
Yeah.
We call this ad fatigue, by the way. When your
Yes.
ad gets too old and stale and cold, this is the moment that's on the other side of that bell curve. After the peak performance of the ad happens, we get into what we call ad fatigue, which is where people become tired of seeing the same ad. They haven't gained anything new from it,
Yeah.
and it's time to swap it
That's
out.
one of the biggest ways to waste money is
Hmm.
to keep doing that. So, yes, you're going to pay a little bit more in production and energy and attention to doing this and planning out your messaging. But that is like when you do it the right way, that's like a way to get more out of your ad budget. When you are refreshing creative, when you're keeping your audience interested with something new, surprising, and different, they just tend to get a little bit more excited and less checkout mode when your next ad, um, you know, reaches their ears or their eyes.
Hmm.
And so don't let your audience get bored. Continue entertaining them, continue being wonderful and surprising and brilliant.
Hmm.
And that's what a good friend does. That's what a good company does. That's what a good brand does. And let's just put ourselves in that principle. And really, you trace it back to empathy.
Yeah.
Use a little, few of these psychological, guardrails, and you're going to have um, better frequency. Just plan ahead to be able to do frequent changes to your creative.
Yeah. If you are just now getting into TV or radio or even YouTube and Facebook, and you're watching this video just to make sure you do it right, I want to encourage you, make sure you set a part of your budget is not just going to the spend itself, but it is going to producing great creative. We,
Mm.
we talk about this: strategy first, message is second, media is the third in order. And if we jump straight down to the media and we talk about the dollars going there, but we don't give due weight to the message, you are going to miss it every single time. And so make sure that you build in, if you need 10 ads a year, 12 ads a year, you're building in that time, you're building in that budget, whatever that costs. Some station might help you out with it, but
Mm.
you're making that a part of what you do.
Yeah. Hey, join our mastermind. Subscribe to our podcast. Did you tell them to join the mastermind?
Go to mavenmethodtraining.com.
Yeah, we would love to personally review this and work on your stuff with you with a bunch of other really fun, brilliant people.
Yep.
Mavenmethodtraining.com. You can jump in and bring your ads, bring your schedules. We'll look
Yeah.
at it with objective eyes. And that is something that other people pay many thousands of dollars for
Yeah.
to get our team's feedback. And we do that in a group format every other week on the Maven Marketing Mastermind. So
Mhm.
we will be back here every week answering questions like this and other things you need to grow your business and get the most out of your marketing, because marketers who cannot teach you why
Are just a fancy lie.
have a great week.